The great hall of the alien court was alive with color and sound. Glowing pillars rose high into the air, carved with strange markings that pulsed with soft light. The floor shone like glass, reflecting the figures that moved across it. Nobles in long robes of silver and blue whispered to one another, their eyes, bright and sharp, turned often toward the single human who stood among them. He felt small in that place. His heart beat fast as he tried to stand tall, but his legs were heavy. His name was Daniel. He was not a soldier or a prince. He was only a traveler caught in events far beyond him. And yet, somehow, he had been summoned here, before the ruler of an alien empire. At the center of the hall sat the throne, high and cold. Upon it, the alien king watched in silence. His presence alone was enough to make Daniel lower his gaze. But it was not the king who held Daniel's attention. It was the figure beside him. The alien princess stood tall, her form graceful yet strong. Her eyes were a deep shade of violet, glowing faintly in the light. She wore armor that shimmered like liquid metal, delicate yet unbreakable. Around her head, a thin crown of crystal rested, humming with hidden energy. Daniel had never seen anyone so beautiful, so distant, and yet so real. The court spoke of her often. He had heard the whispers even before entering the chamber. They called her untouchable, a jewel of the empire, a figure who would never belong to any outsider, especially not a human. But when Daniel's gaze met hers, something inside him trembled. He did not mean to speak. His lips moved before he could stop them. His voice was only a whisper, soft and quiet, meant only for himself. "I wish I could marry you," he said, almost like a prayer carried into the air. Silence. For a moment, Daniel thought no one heard. He felt shame rise inside him, hot and heavy. He had spoken too loudly. His words, foolish and dangerous, might cost him more than his pride. Then, slowly, the princess turned her head, her eyes fixed on him. Her face was calm, unreadable. The corners of her lips curved, just slightly, into a smile. It was not a smile of mockery, not a cruel laugh. It was something softer, something strange, a spark of warmth in a hall that felt colder than space itself. The nobles froze. Their whispers died. Their eyes moved from the human to the princess. Shock spread across the room. No one had ever seen her smile in court. Daniel's chest tightened. His hands shook at his sides. He wanted to step back, to run, to vanish into the crowd. But his feet would not move. He was trapped by her gaze, a prisoner of that smile. The alien king's voice broke the silence, deep and steady. "What did you say, human?" Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came. His throat was dry. His heart pounded louder than the king's voice. He felt the weight of every noble's stare, pressing down on him, crushing him. The princess spoke before he could answer. Her voice was smooth like silver, carrying strength and mystery. "He said he wished to marry me." The hall erupted. Gasps, shouts, and murmurs filled the air. Some nobles stood, their faces pale with anger. Others laughed, cruel and sharp, mocking both human and princess alike. Daniel's mind raced. He had not meant for this. He had not meant for anyone to hear. And yet the truth now hung in the air, impossible to take back. The princess looked at him again. Her smile had not faded. In her violet eyes, there was no anger, no shame, only curiosity, as if she had found something unexpected in a place where she thought nothing new could exist. Daniel's knees nearly gave way. His breath caught in his chest. He could not speak. He could only stare. The hall was alive with voices, but in his ears there was only silence, silence and the sound of his own heartbeat. And then, as the voices of the court rose higher, the princess turned back to the king, her expression calm, her smile hidden now behind the mask of royal duty. But the moment had happened, and nothing could erase it. Daniel knew his life had just changed forever. The court did not calm. Voices clashed against the high walls like waves in a storm. Some shouted for the king to silence the human. Others demanded the princess deny what she had said. The glowing pillars flickered as if the very hall reacted to the chaos. Daniel stood frozen. His chest was tight, his breath shallow. He wanted to speak, to explain, but no words came. Every noble eye burned into him, sharp with hatred. The alien king raised his hand, and the court fell into uneasy silence. His gaze turned to his daughter, His voice was iron-wrapped in calm. "Is this true, princess? Do you smile for this human's foolish words?" The princess did not lower her eyes. Her chin lifted, her violet gaze steady. For a heartbeat, the court held its breath. Then, slowly, her lips curved again, a deliberate smile. The silence shattered. Nobles gasped as if struck. Some clutched their robes. Others sneered in fury. To smile in the throne hall was rare. To smile at a human was unthinkable. Daniel's heart thundered. He could not look away. That smile was not mocking. It was not cold. It was warm, curious, alive. And for a moment, it felt like the whole hall vanished, leaving only her and him. A noblewoman stepped forward, her long silver robe dragging across the floor. Her voice was sharp as a blade. "Your Highness, this cannot be. A human is weak, unworthy of even standing in your presence. You shame us with your smile." Others followed, voices rising again. "End this insult," cried one. "Remove him," shouted another. The court was becoming a storm ready to break. Daniel felt the ground slipping beneath him. His whisper had become a spark, and now it was a fire threatening to consume him. He waited for the king to strike, for guards to seize him. But the king did not move. His eyes, dark and cold, studied his daughter. "Why do you smile?" he asked. "Is there something in this human that I do not see?" The princess did not answer at once. She turned her gaze back to Daniel. Her smile faded into something unreadable, something only he could feel. It was as if she searched his soul without words. Daniel felt exposed. Every part of him laid bare beneath her gaze. He wanted to run, yet his legs would not obey. He wanted to deny, yet his heart betrayed him, beating with a rhythm too loud to hide. Finally, the princess spoke, her voice calm but carrying across the chamber. "I smile because he is different. He speaks truth without fear. His whisper is more honest than all the voices in this hall." The words struck the nobles like thunder. Cries of anger rose again. Blasphemy. Madness. This human has poisoned her mind. The king's face remained still, unreadable, but his hand clenched the arm of his throne. "Be careful, daughter," his voice rumbled. "One smile can turn kingdoms. One word can start wars." Daniel felt the weight of her words pressing on him. He had not meant to speak, yet his whisper had reached the heart of a princess. He was no longer invisible, no longer just a traveler. He had become a piece on a board far greater than he understood. The princess did not falter. Her gaze swept the room, then returned to Daniel. That smile, small and quiet, returned for only him. Daniel's stomach twisted, fear and wonder mixing until he could no longer tell them apart. He had dreamed of her before, but never like this, never so close, never so real. The court had seen enough. A heavy voice thundered from the crowd. An alien general armored in black steel, his eyes burning with fury. "This ends now. Your Highness, a human cannot stand beside our blood. If this insult is not ended, then I will end it myself." Guards moved, their weapons glowing with energy. Daniel's breath caught. He was surrounded, trapped. His foolish words had pulled him into a storm. The king raised his hand again. "Enough," he commanded. "This will not be decided in chaos. The law of the empire will judge worth. If this human seeks to stand before my daughter, he will face the trial." The words froze Daniel's blood. The trial. He did not know what it was, but he knew the way the nobles smiled, cruel and sharp. Meant it was no honor. It was a sentence. The princess lowered her head slightly, her smile gone, but her eyes still on him. For a moment, Daniel thought he saw fear in her gaze. Not for herself, but for him. The hall roared with approval. Nobles cheered for the king's decree. Their voices carried like thunder. Daniel stood in silence, his body trembling. His whisper had become a vow, and now it would be tested. But even as fear threatened to break him, one thought burned bright in his chest. He would not take back his words. He had wished to marry her, and somehow, against all reason, he still did. The night air of the royal garden was heavy with perfume. Glowing flowers opened under the twin moons, their petals shining like silver flames. Water rippled in long pools that reflected the stars above. The palace seemed quiet, but Daniel felt eyes on him, unseen guards hidden in the shadows, watching his every move. He had been led here after the storm of the throne hall. His heart was still restless. Every word of the nobles echoed in his ears. The trial, they said. The trial will break him. He walked slowly among the tall crystal trees, his thoughts as tangled as the roots beneath them. Then, a soft sound, footsteps too light to belong to armored guards. Daniel turned, and there she was, the alien princess, her violet eyes glowing in the moonlight. Her presence seemed to bend the air around her, and yet she moved with grace, quiet as if the garden belonged to her alone. Daniel bowed quickly, his voice shaking. "Your Highness," he said, his shame pressed on him like iron. "I am sorry for my words. I should never have spoken." But the princess did not scold. She stepped closer, her expression unreadable. Her crown shimmered in the moonlight. Her voice, when it came, was soft, but strong enough to silence the wind. "Do not be sorry, human," she said. "Tell me this. Would you truly marry me if you could?" Daniel's breath stopped. The garden seemed to fall into silence. Even the pools of water stilled, as if the whole world waited for his answer. He stared at her, his throat dry. He wanted to deny it, to say no, to escape the weight of her words. But the truth burned too brightly. His whisper had not been a mistake. It had been his heart. "Yes," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "I would. With all I am, I would." The princess studied him in silence. Her gaze cut through him like a blade, yet it carried warmth, curiosity, perhaps even longing. She moved closer, her face only an arm's length from his. "You speak with no crown, no power, no army," she said. "You risk your life with a whisper. Do you not fear what you will lose?" Daniel's chest tightened. "I fear," he admitted. "But I fear more the thought of silence. If I never spoke, I would regret it forever." For the first time, her lips parted not in a smile, but in something gentler, almost fragile. "You are unlike them," she said. "Our nobles, our generals, they speak with weapons and laws. But you spoke with your heart." From the shadows, a voice growled, breaking the moment. A tall alien figure stepped into the moonlight, armored in dark metal, his face marked with scars. "Princess," he said coldly, "you lower yourself by speaking to him. The king's trial will decide his fate, not your curiosity." The princess's eyes flashed, but she did not turn away from Daniel. She raised her hand, silencing the soldier. "Leave us," she commanded. Her voice carried the weight of royalty. The soldier hesitated, then bowed stiffly and melted back into the shadows. Daniel's pulse raced. He had expected anger, exile, or even death. Instead, he had been given a question, a chance, a moment no human should have had. The princess stepped even closer, so close he could see the faint shimmer of energy that moved across her skin like a veil. "If you survive the trial," she whispered, "the answer I give before the court will not be for them." Her violet eyes held his. "It will be for you." Daniel felt his knees weaken. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. The trial, it was more than a test now. It was the bridge between his whisper and her answer. The garden lights dimmed as a breeze swept through, carrying with it the promise of danger yet to come. But within that moment, Daniel knew one truth. If his whisper had begun the storm, her question had lit the fire that would guide him through it. The dawn light poured into the throne hall, the crystal windows catching fire with the rising sun. Nobles filled the chamber again, their robes sweeping the floor, their voices sharp with anger. The night had changed nothing. Their rage had only grown. Daniel stood near the center, a circle of guards around him. His chest felt heavy. His whisper had pulled him into a storm he could not escape. He could still feel the princess's question from the garden echoing inside him. But here, in front of the court, there was no softness, only cold steel eyes. A nobleman with a high collar stepped forward, his voice loud enough to shake the air. "This human dares to dream of our princess," he declared. "He should be cast out, not honored. His words are an insult to our blood." Others joined, their voices rising. "The princess belongs to the empire, not to a stranger. He is weak, unfit even to breathe our air. This cannot stand." Daniel swallowed hard. His hands trembled at his sides. He had no weapons, no shield, only his voice. And yet, he could not find words. The court's fury was louder than any defense he could make. The alien king raised his hand, but this time the hall did not fall silent. The nobles were too angry. Their voices clashed until the air itself seemed to vibrate. It was then that a sound cut through the storm, not loud, but powerful. The princess rose from her seat. Her violet eyes scanned the chamber. Her voice rang clear. Enough. The court stilled, unwilling yet unable to disobey. She stepped forward, her robes trailing like liquid silver. You speak of honor, of blood, she said. But tell me this. What honor is there in mocking truth? What strength is there in fearing words spoken from the heart? A ripple of shock passed through the nobles. They were unused to her voice raised in defiance. For years she had been silent, a figure of beauty and duty, never one to challenge. But now she stood between them and the human. The black-armored general who had spoken in the garden stepped forward, his voice like thunder. Your Highness, you risk everything. The Empire watches you. The throne demands purity. A human will never be worthy. If you will not deny him, then I will destroy him myself. Gasps filled the air. The threat was clear, and no one doubted the general's power. His armor gleamed. His scars told of countless battles. He was a living legend among them. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to step back, but something inside him pushed forward. He met the general's burning gaze. His voice cracked, but did not break. If you think I am unworthy, then prove it. The hall erupted in chaos again. Nobles shouted, some in shock, some in laughter. The human had challenged a general. The king's eyes narrowed. His voice cut through the noise. Silence. His throne shook as he leaned forward. His gaze turned to Daniel. You speak boldly, human, but boldness is not enough. If you wish to stand beside my daughter, you must pass the trial of worth. If you fail, your life ends. If you survive, the court will have no choice but to see you as more than a whisper. The general's smile was cruel. Yes, let the trial decide, and when he falls, the princess will see the truth of her mistake. The princess's face did not change, but Daniel saw the faintest flicker in her eyes. A warning, a fear. She stepped forward, her voice firm. Father, if the trial is to be, then let it be fair. Let it test not only strength, but heart. The king considered her words. His silence weighed heavy. Then he nodded once. So it shall be. The court buzzed. Nobles whispered with hungry smiles. They wanted to see the human break. They wanted to see his whisper crushed beneath the law. Daniel felt his stomach twist. The trial, a test he did not understand, awaited him. Yet as the princess glanced toward him, just for a moment, he saw the faint curve of her lips. Not a smile for the court, but a secret one, just for him. And in that single glance, he found his strength. The trial ground lay beneath the palace. Deep within the ancient stone carved by hands long forgotten, torches burned with blue fire along the walls, their light dancing across carvings of battles and monsters. The air was heavy, the scent of dust and iron pressing against Daniel's chest. The nobles gathered above in the viewing platforms, their voices low and eager. They had come to watch the human fail, to see his whisper end in blood. The king sat high upon a throne of black stone, his face unreadable. The princess stood beside him, her hands hidden within her robes, her eyes never leaving Daniel. Daniel stepped into the circle marked on the floor. His legs felt weak, his breath quick. The guards had stripped him of all weapons, all armor. He stood in simple clothes, bare hands his only defense. He could hear the nobles laugh softly, already certain of his death. From the far side, the iron gate groaned as it lifted, chains rattled, and a roar rolled through the chamber like thunder. The beast emerged, towering and terrible. Its scales shimmered with green fire, its claws long as blades, eyes of burning gold fixed on Daniel with hunger. The crowd cheered, their voices echoed down. End him. Show his weakness. No human can face the trial. Daniel's throat went dry. He wanted to run. His body screamed to flee, but he could not. Not with the princess watching, not with his whisper still alive in her eyes. He clenched his fists, his voice low. I will not fall. The beast lunged, claws striking stone. The ground shook. Dust filled the air. Daniel rolled to the side, barely escaping. His heart hammered. Fear clawed at him, but something deeper burned stronger, survival. He looked around. His eyes scanned the arena. The beast was strong, faster than him. If he fought with strength, He would die. He had to think. He had to use what humans had always used, wit. The walls were cracked, the ground uneven. Torches burned low within reach. He snatched one, the fire hot against his hand. The beast roared, rushing again. Daniel held the flame high, not as a weapon but as a lure. At the last moment, he tossed it into the air. The beast's eyes followed, its head turning, its charge off balance. Daniel dove forward, rolling beneath its strike. He grabbed a chain that hung loose from the wall, wrapping it quick around the beast's leg. The creature thrashed, the chain groaned. The nobles gasped, some in shock, some in laughter. The princess leaned forward, her breath caught, her eyes wide as she watched. The beast tore free, roaring with rage. Daniel staggered, bruised, his body screaming with pain. But he did not stop. He picked up a shard of stone broken from the floor. His hands shook, not with fear, but with determination. He would not quit. The beast lunged once more, its mouth open wide. Daniel did the only thing he could. He threw the stone with all his strength, not at its body, but at the torch he had tossed earlier. The stone struck true, knocking the torch into the beast's eyes. Fire flared. The beast screamed, its head thrashing. Blinded, Daniel moved, fast and desperate. He wrapped the chain around its neck, pulling with all he had. His muscles burned, his lungs ached, but he held on. The creature stumbled, roaring until its voice broke. It crashed to the ground, shaking the arena. The nobles shouted, some furious, some stunned. The trial ground fell into silence. Daniel stood, chest heaving, his clothes torn, his skin cut and bleeding. But he was alive. He had not won with strength. He had not won with power. He had won with human spirit. Above, the king's face remained stone, but his eyes narrowed in thought. The nobles whispered, uneasy now, their laughter gone. The princess's lips parted, her violet eyes shimmering. For the first time since the whisper, she let her smile return. Daniel met her gaze, his heart pounding. He had survived, but he knew the trial was not over. The beast was only the first step. The real test was yet to come. The trial ground was silent, dust floating through the air like smoke after battle. The great beast lay still, its body shuddering with the last traces of life. Chains hung broken across its scales, torches burned low against the stone. Daniel stood alone in the circle, his chest heaving, his arms trembling from exhaustion. Blood streaked across his skin, not all of it his own. Every breath burned like fire. Yet he remained standing, his eyes lifted upward to the high balcony where the nobles waited. At first, there was only silence, then a voice, sharp with disbelief. Impossible. Another voice followed, louder, angrier. Trickery. He cheated the trial. But others did not speak. Their faces had changed, their laughter gone. In their eyes lingered something Daniel had never expected: respect. The alien king leaned forward on his black stone throne. His gaze was steady, heavy, unblinking. He studied Daniel as one might study a weapon just forged. You live, the king said, his voice echoing across the chamber. But survival is not enough. Before Daniel could answer, another voice cut through the silence. It was the princess. She stepped closer to the edge of the balcony, her violet eyes glowing like fire. He has done what none of your warriors could, she said. He faced death with nothing but his hands, and he still stands. That is worth more than steel. The nobles erupted again. Some shouted in rage, some in fear. He cannot be accepted. It breaks our laws. If this continues, our empire will fall. Their words clashed until they became a storm. But Daniel heard none of it. His eyes remained locked on the princess. Her voice had cut through the noise, reaching him, anchoring him in the chaos. She had defended him before them all. The black-armored general stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon, his face twisted in fury. This is not victory, he growled. This is weakness disguised as survival. Give me the chance, and I will show you what true strength looks like. Allow me to end this human now. Gasps rippled through the court. The general had broken the order of the trial. His challenge was direct, violent. The king's eyes narrowed, but before he could speak, the princess raised her hand. No, she said, her voice like thunder wrapped in silk. The law is clear. He has faced the trial and lived. His worth has been shown. You would defy not just him, but the will of the empire itself. The general froze, fury burning in his eyes. But even he could not strike against the princess's words. He bowed stiffly, his armor clanging, and stepped back into the shadows. The court fell into uneasy silence once more. The king looked from his daughter to the human, his voice deep and slow. You have survived what should have killed you. Human, perhaps there is more to your kind than weakness, perhaps. Daniel's breath shook as he straightened his back. His body screamed in pain. But he forced himself to stand tall. I did not survive for myself, he said, his voice low but clear. I survived because I meant my words. I would not let them die here. The princess's lips curved, a faint smile that no noble could mistake. It was not the polite mask she had worn before. It was real, alive, burning like a hidden flame. The crowd murmured again, uneasy. Their empire had been shaken. A single human had stood in their trial and lived. A single whisper had turned into a storm that none could control. The king leaned back on his throne, his eyes still locked on Daniel. This is not the end, he said. The court must decide, and the court will not yield easily. His gaze shifted to the princess, then back to Daniel. Prepare yourself, human, the true choice will come soon. Daniel felt the weight of those words. He had survived the beast, won respect from some, hatred from others. But the battle was not finished. His whisper still hung in the air, unanswered. Yet as the princess looked at him one last time, her violet eyes soft with something only he could see, Daniel knew he had not fought in vain. For in that glance, in that secret smile, there was promise, and for the first time, he believed victory was more than survival. It was the beginning of something greater. The throne hall was filled again, more crowded than ever before. Nobles packed the balconies, their jeweled robes glowing in the light of the crystal pillars. Soldiers lined the walls, their weapons humming with quiet energy. Every voice was tense, waiting for what was to come. Daniel stood in the center once more, his body still scarred from the trial. His arms ached, his ribs burned, but he stood tall. His whisper had carried him this far, but now the final weight pressed down upon him. Today, the princess would speak her answer before all. The alien king sat high on his throne, his eyes dark and unreadable. He raised one hand, and the hall fell silent. His voice was steady, deep. The human has faced the trial. He stands alive, stronger than any expected. But this matter is not mine alone. It is for the princess to decide. Every noble leaned forward, waiting for her words. Some whispered that she would refuse. Others swore she would obey duty over desire. The court hung between hope and fury. The princess stepped forward, her robes trailing like rivers of silver. Her violet eyes burned as they swept across the chamber. She saw the sneers of generals, the fear of nobles, the unreadable gaze of her father. But when her eyes found Daniel, she paused, and the silence deepened. Daniel's breath caught. He could not speak. Not now. All he had was the pounding of his heart. The princess's voice rose, calm but unshakable. I heard his whisper, she said. It was not spoken to impress, not spoken for power. It was truth, pure and unguarded, a whisper that carried more strength than all the speeches of this court. Gasps echoed. Nobles shifted uneasily. Some scowled, some clenched their fists, but none dared interrupt. The princess continued, her eyes never leaving Daniel. You say he is weak. You say he is unworthy. Yet he stood in the trial with no blade, no shield. And he lived. He faced what none of you would face with empty hands. And he endured. Tell me, which of you has done the same? Murmurs rose, uneasy. The generals looked away. The nobles whispered behind their hands. The alien king's gaze darkened. Daughter, he said, do you know the weight of what you are about to speak? She turned her face to him, her chin high. Yes, father, I know. Then she looked back at Daniel, and the hall seemed to vanish. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. Her voice softened, yet carried to every ear in the chamber. I heard your whisper, human, she said, and my answer is yes. The hall erupted, shouts of rage, cries of shock, gasps of disbelief. The nobles stood, their voices clashing like blades. Treason! This cannot be. The empire will fall. The general roared in fury. his hand reaching for his weapon. But the king's hand struck the air, stopping him. The king's face was a storm, anger, pride, and something darker warring within him. Daniel could not move. His knees felt weak, his heart thundered. His whisper, a single careless dream, had become reality. He looked at her, the princess who had defied her empire for him, and he could not speak. The princess stepped down from the throne platform, walking slowly toward him. Every step defied tradition. Every step shook the empire. The nobles shouted. The guards shifted, but none dared stop her. She stopped before Daniel, her violet eyes soft. Her voice was for him alone, though the court still heard it. "This is not the end," she whispered. "It is only the beginning." Daniel's breath trembled. He bowed his head, his voice low. "Then I will face whatever comes, as long as you walk beside me." The court roared with fury. The empire trembled. But within that storm, a human and an alien princess stood together, bound not by law or power, but by a whisper and an answer. And in that moment, a new destiny was written, one that no blade, no throne, no empire could erase.